living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Michael Storm. This is Toward Anarchy, and as always, it is my pleasure to be here. It's Sunday afternoon. It's a beautiful day. Started out raining here in the literal middle of America, and the sun is poked out and it's warmed up, and it's shaping up to be a fantastic, wonderful, beautiful day. And I'm glad to be able to share that with you. It's 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We do this live every week at this time for a couple of hours. Get together right here on the Republic Broadcasting Network and talk about some of the things that are happening in the world, some things that are of interest to me, and that's the plan today. I had a plan to speak with a friend from the land down under this week about the tyranny in relation to lockdowns and mask mandates and vaccine mandates. In Australia, they seem to be having a tough go of it. They were disarmed not long ago, and I don't know if that makes a difference, if that's what would keep. I don't think it does. It seems that anytime you outlaw something, there's just a good solid black market for it that is instantly created in that, and people are then doing their thing covertly, and so I don't suppose that's the real problem. I suppose that the real problem is similar to what it is here in America, and for most of us it's not a big issue because it's kind of happening to somebody else. It's certainly something that I experience, but then again, I'm purposely removed from everything. I don't consider myself to be a part of the system. I stand above it. I guess there's no other way to put it than that. I think I am absolutely better than it, and I think that my ideas are better than it, and so I don't put a lot of energy into it, and I don't spend a lot of time lost in trying to fight it, trying to change it. I do my little thing here, which is, I suppose it's pretty decent in what it does. I reach a lot of people. There's a lot of feedback that I get. People talk about, mention things that I'm saying on the show. So people are listening and paying attention, and as I do, I strive to be truthful. That's the best I can do, and I think that's pretty good. But some people don't think that's a great thing, and it's kind of scary. Let me jump right into it, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. If you go to towardanarchy.com, look for October 24th. If it's not right there on the front page, click the episodes button, click on 2021, click on October, walk you right through it. It says October 24. You see open phones on the show today. Your calls, comments, questions will make it an AMA show, and I don't mean American Medical Association. It's an Ask Me Anything. That's what the kids call it these days. A open phones or a call-in show. It's an Ask Me Anything show, and so we'll do that. We'll open up the phones, 512-248-8252. Your questions, your comments, anything, anarchy, economics, any of the stuff that we talk about, language, history, pop culture. I have links if you're following along with me. October 24th, towardanarchy.com. What I was just talking about, this idea that I just want to tell the truth. That That's a bad thing, according to mainstream controlled media thought. Anyway, the Washington Post took out a hit on the individual choice, the anti-vaxxers, the individual health choice movement, as well as sort of logic and reason and truth. So business as usual. But I have to show you some of the things. This is the title of the article. 5 tactics used to spread vaccine misinformation in the wellness community and why they work. They are pointedly talking about a certain group, the wellness community. So they're demonizing that whole idea of taking control of your own health. You go back through the last 2 years, and there's hardly a mention in mainstream media about taking care of your health, taking vitamins, getting sunlight, getting up off of your ever-widening bum, and moving about because it's good for your health. And they don't want you to do things that are good for your health because I don't think they want you to live for very long. So I'm looking at this piece on the Washington Post backwards. This is about how you can spot misinformation in the wellness community, and I'm doing it backwards because if you read it from the top down, you're sucked in to the narrative because they're going to give you a reason to hate these people. They're not going to try to dismiss the reasonable stuff until further on, after they already have you hooked. This is the impression that I get from reading this piece, and you see how I like to play around with some of these things. I don't always get into the articles like this. I should, probably more than I do, just to explain some of the things. But I think you get it. Most of the time, I think it's right there if I just point you to it, even if you didn't realize it was there. So I give you some credit in that, and I apologize if it's too much. So looking at this thing backwards and about this, how to spot lies, misinformation, false news within the wellness community, particularly the anti-vax movement. The last thing they tell you is building community. So you have to watch out for somebody who's building community. That's the gist of it. Okay, these are the things this is how you spot these people that you should stay away from and avoid their advice about anything, I'm assuming. But in this case, health. So the first thing, again, I'm doing this backwards because they already have you hooked. You'll see when we get there to the top of the list. Building community. You have to avoid people who are building community. They're dangerous and telling you lies. This thing, appealing to natural and holistic health interests. So because you are interested in finding whatever they certify, I guess, as natural, positive health, holistic remedies for things, this area where we're talking about vaccines, you can't listen to them. You can't trust them on that. They share this other thing in common with you, but you can't trust them on the vaccine thing because I'm not certain why. They don't really spell that out. They just take and point to falling down the rabbit hole and be careful of the links that you share because they'll repeat things to you and they'll share links and ask you to do your own research, but the links are bad. You don't want to follow those links. They're trying really hard not to tell you, which I don't understand why, because they already have. They've repeated it numerous times over the last 2 years that you shouldn't think for yourself. But they're trying real hard not to say that. They're trying to make you think you're thinking for yourself. It's really kind of a kick to the groin. Taking science out of context. That's the third reason why you can't trust these people. They're taking out of context, and this is a quote from the article. The public is observing the scientific method up close and in real time. The uncertainty inherent in the process and the rapidly changing public policy based on it, and has eroded trust further in authorities and made it easier. They're dismissing that that's a fact. They're stating it, but they're dismissing it because they're continuing to go on. That problem has made it easier for members of the wellness community, people who are vaccine hesitant. There's no hesitation. We're not taking it. Okay? Do we have to keep stating that? You're going to have to force us. You're going to have to play your hand. We're not vaccine hesitant, but they will present scientific material in a misleading way, as if that's not the they just got through saying that that's exactly the problem with the information that's being given to us and why we don't trust it. But you can't trust it from them. You can't. Who are you supposed to trust it from? What expert do you get to choose? I would hope that if it comes to a matter of your health, that you would make that choice, that you would be smart enough, learned enough, passionate enough, caring about yourself, that you would go out and find out whether or not the things that they say are good for you are or aren't. There's no pattern of them ever changing and starting to push I don't want to say the right way to do things, the natural way to do things maybe. All of these are problematic a little bit because somebody's going to nitpick it and they just say, no, that's not. All of these attacks on the individual choice is what it comes down to, and that makes it very hard to accept any of what they offer, even if it's true. You understand that? You're sacrificing a core function of the individual to this collective that has never shown, this was the point, there's no history of them ever taking back what they've said when they're wrong, or being punished, having to pay some sort of consequence for when they're wrong. And they're always wrong. Their aim is always the increase of cash flow at the bottom of it. It's cliche to say it, but you follow the trail of the money. That's always the case. Framing themselves as truth seekers. That's number, and that they've used the word truthers if they realize that truthers just means truth seekers, but it has that 9/11 association with it, so they can't use it. Otherwise, they'd have used that word, framing themselves as truthers. There's nothing wrong with being a truth seeker. There's nothing wrong with questioning their so-called science. Look, the CDC and others are stroking themselves this week over their vaccine mortality numbers. So you take the vaccine, actually it's not even the vaccine mortality numbers, it's the mortality numbers of COVID after you've had a vaccine. And they're stroking themselves saying that it's 1%. That it's only 1% of people who have taken the vaccine who get COVID or had COVID one way or the other. They've taken the vaccine, only 1% of them die. Well, I have news for you, in case you haven't been paying attention, but even in America, which is lower than the world is doing better than America, go figure, because they're trying to shove technology literally down your throat. In the case of the respirators, literally shoving these things down people's throat after they've already crashed, after they've had an oxygen crash, and then killing them, basically. The CDC, these numbers talk about 1%. The reality is 99.9% across the world, 99.99% across the world, and 99.96% in America. Less than 1% of people who get COVID die anyway. So what they're telling you is and the vaccine doesn't work, that it does nothing. Again, confirming just a cursory glance at the claim, at the numbers. And if any of it's even remotely true, which that's so hard to believe too. And so most people would say it's not. Just to address that, most people would say it's not. Those numbers aren't true, that they're inflated. Well, if they're inflated, guess what? Then it's a hell of a lot less than 1%. Remember when I said something about 0.02%? I'm not so sure that little gaffe of speech wasn't actually right. I mean, when you look at these real numbers, it was just this morning that Chris Wallace, Fox News Sunday. I'm not a watcher. I caught a headline. Sorry, you don't get to call that one on me. But he was talking with the CDC director, Dr. Walensky, and questioned her about events like the football season. I've been watching some football. It's been on in the back. I don't know why there's no game on right now. And the NFL take the weekend off or something. There doesn't happen to be a game on right at the moment. It's Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton singing "Islands in the Stream" on some horrible commercial. It looks like. I've been watching the football. Many other people, many millions of people, tens of thousands at every single event, and most of them without masks. And all they can say is that's because it's outside. Okay, they're outside screaming, sweating, embracing each other, high fives, getting drunk, hanging on each other. All these things that we're not supposed to do, whether it's in a closed space or an open space. And the truth is, and they damn well know this, and this is why numbers of the flu and cold go up during the holiday season. It's not because you catch a cold because you went outside. That's not how it works. Regardless of what you believe about viral transmission and viruses, and there's plenty of question about that. Regardless of what you believe about it, it's not, you don't catch a cold just because you went outside and it's cold. It's not it. It's that people stay in more and they're around each other more, and the transmission, the contact, and the lack of sunlight, the lack of vitamin D. These are the things that contribute to a rise, and that seems to be what will be the case with this endemic that is COVID. And, oh, man, this is one of these weeks for this conversation, I suppose, where we have to talk about truth seekers, truthers. Let me finish this thing. I'll get back to it. I made a note of it. We have to talk about it. So framing yourself as a truth seeker, if you're someone who seeks truth, you can't listen to me. I'm the demon voice, because all I want to do is be truthful and honest in what I present to you. I can't vouch for anything else that's out there. Do you not understand that? And do you not understand how people who do are fools, morons, braggarts? You can't speak for anything you are not personally responsible for. You can offer up your opinion, and they may well be grounded, factually based opinion, but they're still just opinion. So you can't trust anybody who says they're saying the truth or that they're seeking the truth. Encouraging skepticism of institutions. So the institution, because of its very existence, proves itself, not its track record, because you don't want to look at the track record. You don't want to look at those numbers. You don't want to look at the CDC numbers. When I say something and I claim that vaccines, there's little evidence to suggest that they really work, they're all based on a faulty premise in the first place, and the data collection and the politicization and commercialization of the vaccine industry, and the good for humanity, the fact that government can use it as a tool of oppression and coercion and eventually force. all speak to a reality for someone like me who's looked at the numbers that says that it don't work. Let's see. Was that the last one? No, there's one more. We'll come back and we'll finish that. Okay, so I was done with that. That was the fifth one. It was 5 tactics used to spread vaccine misinformation in the wellness community and why they work. It's a Washington Post article, towardanarchy.com. You can find it there if you look for October 24th. It's the second link down in a number of links that I shared with you. And I have a ton of different things to talk about today. I'll open up the phones if you want to participate, if you have some questions about any of the things that I'm talking about or whatever. It doesn't matter. I have some pop culture things, some fun stuff that I shared. In particular, the movie trailer for this is something you have to go watch yourself. I won't be playing it because you won't get the effect. If it was just something that I could do audio, I'd get Sam to cue it up for me, but it's not. You actually have to see it. But if you want to participate in the show, it's 512-248-8252, and take a look there while you're at towardanarchy.com. As always, I ask you to like, share, follow, subscribe. I try to make that as easy as possible. You might know if you're following along with me, if you've been around for the 3 years we've been doing this, the website changes. You know, I get these bursts of energy and will bust out something and make some core changes. I have some notes of some things that I'd like to do to it over the next couple of months. Add a link for being a guest. That's one of the things that I've been working on, is expanding my range of influence of people who are willing to come and talk. There's all sorts of people who have their thing and have interesting stories to tell, but it's not easy necessarily to get them to tell. So I'm reaching out particularly and trying to suggest that this is a good thing, that this is the way this is the future. That's what it is. Working within the broadcast community, within the podcast community, online, to help each other's shows, to boost our presence and share in each other's connections and the topics. And I'm already in just reaching out this past week in contact with a number of different people doing radically different things than what I'm doing, that have popular shows that we're working out when I can appear and talk on their show about anarchy. And we'll be bringing some of them as we can onto this show as I meet more people and find out about more things that I are of interest and that I think we'll find fun and that we can talk about and jump into and enjoy. I will introduce those people slowly but surely, but I'll add some function on the website there to contact me about being a guest. People do all the time anyway, but I'll make it a little bit easier for somebody to just reach out specifically to do that. And some other things. It's an art project. It's an ongoing art project, a work of a work of labor of love, a labor of love. There you go. You'll notice if you follow along that I've made some changes here just recently. And one of the things I've been talking about wanting to add a new subscribe button or to get back into trying an email list. I had tried my own basically, and I just didn't like the tools that were presented. It just, I don't know. It just didn't cut it. I just didn't like how it worked, and it just didn't feel right. It felt a little clunky. Felt like I needed to do more than I should. Like I was forced to do more than I needed to, other than just sort of plug some things in and get going. And so I got rid of it, and I finally spent some time looking around and looking at the options and things that some of these other services offer. And so I used a MailChimp. I set up a MailChimp account, and so that will now manage the email list for me, and it'll just be a once weekly thing that's just a mention of the show that's coming up, and maybe a mention of not much more probably than just a duplicate of the front page in all reality, because that's exactly what it does. The front page at TowardAnarchy.com is just the show that is or is coming up and the show that just happened. So easy peasy. Go to TowardAnarchy.com, click on the subscribe button. It's on any page, and drop your email address in there. And we'll be right back.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network. Real news, real talk, real people. Because you can handle the truth.
Dr. Dean Lloyd scheduled for the show next week. We're going to continue our conversation on on taking control of your own mental and physical health. But we're talking about the book Cruising the Epiphany Highway by Am Rosen, and just sort of analyzing and having some fun with it, enjoying reading the. It's a fun, interesting work. It's an artistic piece as much as it is a call to learn about yourself and to learn about your world, and such that it is. We'll continue that conversation next week, and we will be talking at least somewhat about this coping with tragedy and loss, and some things that touch on that aspect of the individual and self and that health and wellness concept. So we're doing a Ask Me Anything show today, I guess. I had to look it up. It was funny. I kept seeing that everywhere. Everybody's had an AMA show today. AMA show. Was everybody have the American Medical Association on there? Or is that one of those? Was there a boxing federation or something like that? That's the AMA. I don't know. Who's this AMA and why are they on all of these shows? And then it hit me at one point actually reading the thing instead of just seeing the AMA show, actually reading the context and what it was, and it was clear within the context that it was Ask Me Anything. It was a question and answer type of thing, and so I have to be like the kids today because I am one of the cool kids. I don't want to be like the cool kids. I am one. And so we'll do this Ask Me Anything, and we have a couple callers waiting on the line right now, so we'll jump right into that here in just a second. 512-248-8252, that's the number to jump in. Anyone, if you want one, you have to remember this. Help me remember this. You're the caller. If you want one, grab one of these copies of Economics in One Lesson. All you have to do is leave if you get on the show today, when I say goodbye or we otherwise naturally end the conversation or go on to the next caller, hang out for a second and give your info to Sam if you want one of these copies of Economics in One Lesson, and I will mail it to you, and then I will throw away your address, and you will never receive another thing from me, as unless you send me your address again and ask me for something. It's my way of saying I'm not after your information. I just send out the book to you, and hopefully you read it and get something out of it. Hopefully it's new to you, but if it's not and you still want one, if you've already read it and you still want one, even if it's for yourself, I prefer that you would take it and give it to somebody else, and that they continue to do the same thing and continue to pass it on after they've read it. But whatever you do with it, I'm giving it to you if you want one. So just remember to hit up Sam to give him your information, and we will make sure that you get a copy of Economics in One Lesson. If you've never read it, I think that you will be amazed at the simplicity of it, and you will, if you're interested at all in me and the show and what I do and why I do it. That's a big part of it. There's really two key readings in my life that bring me to where I am, and that's Economics in One Lesson and then the law. Those two short but sweet, poignant, important pieces of literature shaped who I am, and I read them many, many, many moons ago. So 512-248-8252. You can ask me anything. It's pop culture. We can talk about anything. We can talk about the stuff that I'm talking about. We talk about COVID. I'm going to get into the Alec Baldwin thing because there's some core problems in there with the truth seekers and how they get off onto needless, pointless tangents, and well, Alec Baldwin is already a needless, pointless tangent. So as soon as you type his name in there and start saying it, then we've already strayed off the path. So we'll take some calls. 512-248-8252. Get lined up. Get your copy of Economics in One Lesson, and we'll go to Mike. He's in Kentucky on line 3. Mike, what's up, my friend?
I'm always in Kentucky, wherever I'm at, but in a Kentucky state of mind, you might say. So, three things. During the break there, you had a commercial for TLB Talk Live. I would encourage people to get over there. There's several RBN shows hosts that are on there, or engineers like Mike, and I'm trying to remember the other guy's name. It's on way late at night, but I would encourage you, and I'm with a guy right now that has some experience with these folks. You don't necessarily, if you're dealing with the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, it's not all Scientologists. With relation to your topic next week, anybody that wants to participate in that show, I would encourage them to go look up some of their materials, maybe watch some of their videos, and see what we're dealing with, these monster corporations that are driving diagnosis to fit their medications. And it's estimated it's over $500 million, like $563 billion, like 10 years ago for the market for psychotropic drugs.
Is that right?
So there's no worries about corruption in an industry like that, right?
No, never. Money makes everything better. Go ahead.
Okay, one thing the Citizens Commission for Human Rights does not really talk much about is supplement strategies. Mm-hmm. And our industrialized food, I think, is in a large part, if you go to Data Explorer and start comparing all these different countries around the world, America, Northern Italy, the United Kingdom, a lot of these medicalized societies are having a much worse time with COVID. And I believe it's because of industrialized foods that deprive us of essential fatty acids because they're using the Queen's canola oil and all these, whatever they got the cheapest at the factory this week. If you start reading ingredients, corn oil, soybean oil, all these inflammatory oils, and they're devoid of nutrition. There's no magnesium in the food. There's a lot of stuff that our nervous system needs to not become inflamed, and it's not in our foods. But I'm on a speakerphone. I hope I sound all right.
No, you sound fine. You're coming through clear enough, and I'm making it a point not to jump in because you're spot on. It's exactly what I was talking about earlier, and put much better than I did. Absolutely, it's sickening to watch because people are looking to be led, and they just want to believe that these people are doing what's right by them, that they're doing the best that they can, and it's just not the truth. They're not doing the best that they can. They're not looking out for you. They don't even care about you as an individual. That's one thing that's so hard to get across to people, is that they're not even thinking about you as an individual. You don't exist in their mind. You're just another number in a series of numbers that they throw together in a machine and pull up some guesswork and say this chemical and that chemical might not work, might be affecting you, might not.
Human resource resident subject, non-merit employee of Congress. That's what I call it. A 14th Amendment resident of Kentucky is what a lot of people's status is. There's no citizens of Kentucky anymore. And, Republicans, the whole idea that each of our states in the Union was kind of its own police powers is being chipped away at constantly with federal law and the harmonization of law. Larkin, Texas talks about that. What is it called? Communitarianism, where they're trying to harmonize the laws. All these municipalities can subscribe to this international law, municipality law, that they have their own bank of lawyers to defend themselves as they try to enforce all these ordinances and code that they adopt.
Right.
So it makes borders irrelevant.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Especially for them, that's one of the hardest things to really swallow with all this, is that all of these things that we can't do, they can do. That it's the one of my biggest problems with all this is how can you be so hypocritical? How it makes them must be monsters to really be in a position of knowing and having the power and still choosing it to use in such a way that's so destructive to the individual and even society itself. Because without a solid base of individuals, you can't have a solid base for a society. There's just no way.
It takes a village. That's the whole thing that's been going on. The third way, from Al Gore to Hillary, it's all about getting rid of the individual having any rights. And one of the sinister things about these genetic vaccines, and of course, if you remember, Angelina Jolie was running around trying to get everybody tested for their BRCA2 gene, which is a gene that they claim is responsible for breast cancer and ovarian cancer, but
right.
They don't want to admit that our food can cause those genes to express. It's called epigenomics. In the last 20 years, that science is finally starting to be recognized, and they stopped calling a lot of our genetic code junk DNA. But an Australian company was trying to patent that gene location, and that would open the gate to start patenting our genetic code. And so how much of our genetic code gets changed and altered before we're no longer a natural person with natural rights born of a woman, but we're copyrighted creation of corporations?
Well, you ask that a bit facetiously, but the reality is I'm sure somebody somewhere that calls themselves an authority has that number on a piece of paper.
Blade Runner was based on a Philip K. Dick novel called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and it dealt with genetic modified human replicants that were copyrighted and owned by a corporation, and that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Yep, no question about it. Well, and if you own them, I mean, you make all the decisions for them, and you can claim their productivity. Yeah, there's so many things. We're headed into that weird dystopian future it's been predicted because that's what they wanted. That's what they're showing us. They're telling us this is where we're headed.
In the law, there's a notice to the agent, there's notice to the principal. So I know several people in different communities that have actually tried to notice their state, Secretary of State, of their status. Their status is no longer a U.S. citizen, but you can't expatriate, or you'll end up being a man without a country. So you expatriate as a U.S. resident, U.S. citizen, but you have at the same time, you have to repatriate as a citizen of the state you're in, and you become a U.S. national. I've heard about this for 30 years, and some people have been able to do it. They're trying to close loopholes and doors, especially on U.S. passports and stuff like that, to stop people from doing it. But,
no, you're absolutely right. It's something I've talked a little bit about on the show. I have a buddy that has spent years sort of following it, and there used to be a lot more information about it, a lot more easily accessible information about it on the internet than there is now. You have to dig a little bit deeper to get down to it.
You go through the Internet Archives or the Wayback Machine, look for a word called cancelatora. That's when I first heard about it back in the early days of the Internet in like 1994. Cancelatora. Sure.
Yeah,
out all these contractual nexuses that you didn't realize. Just like on the Internet and on your phone, you check a little box that says you've read and understand the terms and conditions. Nobody does that. We're all liars. They don't understand a 40-foot-long terms and conditions contract. It's a lie.
No, absolutely not.
It's beyond the average individual's ability to understand all that. It takes 3.5 months to mechanically read through it. You can't keep all that in your head for what the permutations are and whatever. But,
and there's no value in it in any way, because the truth is the majority of it is innocuous and unprovable and wouldn't stand up in court and the only thing that they're really trying to protect, the point of all of that stuff initially, was simply so you weren't taking apart their software. They didn't want you taking apart their software and messing with their program. But it obviously...
They don't want you to sue for you don't want you to sue them for selling your personal information and whatever.
Well, that's what it's evolved in. Yeah, that's what it's evolved into these days. Yes, that's absolutely right. It's about data collection. Somewhere about 1998 or so, that changed around, and yeah, it started becoming about them and every bit of information they could get from you, and how much of it they could sell and how much they could get away with stealing from you without your knowledge. That's the game now. It's become such a thing that if Facebook is actually looking to change their name, they're to get away from the negative connotation of it. They're looking to pull this slick corporate political BS that we see happen a lot of times. You just sort of change your name or put some new paint on the building and say it's something different.
They've changed it from social media to a platform, and that because how can you? It's fraudulent to call it social media if you're hiding people's profile in the search results. You're blocking their add friend box and all that sort of stuff. But
that was it. That's been my argument about this, is that they've sold us. That's my problem with Facebook. As much as it is its own business and its own private property, my big problem with it is that it's sold to you as one thing, but on the other side, on the other end of it, it's something completely different, and it's in a very much a negative sense. It's really the opposite of what they sold you on. They sold you on community, but what they really created was a little prison where you can't get to certain communities.
Echo chambers and stuff. I've got video and evidence and witnesses for all this stuff. I've got like 70 megabytes of screenshots of their stupidity and their shenanigans. But I'll talk to Sam after the call there and get that
Please do.
book on the way.
You do that. I appreciate the call, Mike. You take care out there. Stay safe on the road, brother. We're going to jump to Tom real quick before we run out of time here. Tom, how you doing? He's in Utah. Hey, how you been, man?
Okay, I just want to add a little bit of sense to the common nonsense.
Please.
Everybody believes that the cold and flu season is triggered by our social habits, right, where we get together in closed spaces. It's a real factor that... Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just talking about. Go ahead.
The real factor is the grand reservoir of disease does not have the privilege of a furnace or shelter, so it cannot maintain its elevated temperature to protect it from the growth or the flowering or the blossoming of these infections.
Yeah, I know, and it's unfortunate because it's a longer conversation. We got to go into a break. Hold that thought, Tom. We'll come right back. TowardAnarchy.com, that's where you should point your browser. It's the easiest place to follow along. As always, I please ask you to like, share, follow, subscribe wherever you're at, and use the new subscribe button to get on the email list so I can send you an email with the link for information about the upcoming episode, the most recent episode. I'll bother you once a week with it. You don't even have to read it. You can give me a pity subscribe. You can do that. I'll accept it. It's fine. It's still one of the best ways I'm finding to be able to reach out to your audience, because the reality is that on the social media stuff, there's so much of it, and a lot of people, especially a lot of people who actually need to hear these things, to listen to a show like this that might really truly get something out of it. They have all their favorites, and movies and music and pop culture, this, that, and the other thing, the football game, all that, all those threads, and their favorite actress and actors, and all those people that they're following on there, and we're just in the mix. That's the best that you can say. But the email list, it's direct. It goes right to you. You sign up for it. You control it yourself, whether you want it anymore or not. there's always a link there at the bottom of the page to be able to unsubscribe to it, or you can always come right back to the subscribe button at towardanarchy.com, put your email address in there, and while it says you'd be subscribing, if you put your email in there and you're already a subscriber and you click on subscribe, it'll take you to the management page and you can unsubscribe if that was what you wanted to do. Just try to find the easiest way, the best ways to stay in touch with people and let them know. And then, of course, that's really easy. You don't have to. You can just point somebody else to it and say, well, there you go. You want to catch the newsletter. You want to find out what he's talking about, see if the show's worth listening to that week. Then you can subscribe to the email to 512-248-8252. Having an open phones kind of day today. Ask me anything. And we're talking to Tom. He's in Utah, and he brings up a good point about it's confusion, about the myriad, really, of differences in individuals. It's the problem with vaccines and why they don't really work, along with a lot of other things. But it's their panacea. It's an attempt to fix everybody with one thing, and our physiology just is not such that we can do that. Our DNA is not such that we can do that. And Tom, you had some other points?
Isn't it kind of curious? We've been made to believe that we are our own enemy.
Mm.
In other words, your brother, your sister, your mother, your children are your worst enemy.
Yeah.
They could kill you with the COVID by simply being, loving, caring. The fact is that the reservoir of disease is not the human family. We are the most sanitary creature in the lot. And the other creatures, they suffer in the wintertime because they don't have the shelter and the furnace running to keep them warm, so their protective body temperatures fail them.
No, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, it's a catch-22 because then, yes, you're warm inside and there's all the benefits of that, but you're not getting outside. You're not getting the benefits of outside, too. Unfortunately, we got to go to the top of the hour. We'll be right back here on Toward Anarchy.
You can't handle the truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit republicbroadcasting.org today, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we are off into hour number 2, towardanarchy.com to follow along. Look for October 24th. You'll see open phones today, having some people call in and just comment on whatever. Ask me some questions, 512-248-8252. And talking about, as always, just what's going on and trying to make some sense of it all. And unfortunately, so often, so many times, it points back to really nefarious, nasty people doing really pointedly, purposely doing things to us to at best treat us like guinea pigs and chattel. We're little toys, playthings for them. Some of the atheists would accuse God of being sort of a Loki-like figure, a trickster that's just playing with us by setting up these conditions for us and leaving us in this world and leaving faith to be what guides us. But they bring that down a level. Set that existential, ethereal conversation aside and look at reality and the way the system is treated like a religion, and how it's an institution, and how the institution itself is more important than what the institution does to the individuals. I've seen it in the church. I've seen it from the state a whole lot more. The state does it everywhere, all the time, to everyone, even the people it claims to be helping. So why would I be talking about anarchy? Why would I be wanting to reach out to people all around the world, whether it's through this show or somebody else's show, try to get in front of audiences who who aren't even receptive to the language of anarchy, why would I want to talk about that? That's why. Because look at the alternative. That's what the alternative is produced for us. So we're taking some calls today, talking about a few things. 512-248-8252 if you want to jump in, and anybody who gets on the show today, if you want a copy, you can have a copy of Economics in One Lesson. Just make sure to give Sam your info, and he will get that from you. Was Tom still on the line there, or did he go already?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, that's cool. Well, make sure if you want to get a copy of that, Tom, you do that. Did you have another thought?
Just wanted to make sure that you understood that the human family is not the grand reservoir of disease.
Yes,
We've been so brainwashed and duped, and they actually like it.
Oh yeah.
We fall prey to our own ignorance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Oh, there's nothing worse than being certainly willfully ignorant when all you have to do is just sort of open up and look around you.
Open your eyes, observe,
yeah.
Think a little bit now and then. Stop listening to ABC, CBS, NBC. The following has been brought to you by Pfizer.
And they're such a trustworthy group.
By the way, they are the ones feeding you this fraud that you can infect your mother, grandmother, your children, whatever, or your friend. Like I say, we're the animal that takes a shower. We use a flush toilet. We cremate our food before we eat it.
Mm.
We're
constantly cleaning surfaces, and we're constantly using chemicals that were all over our bodies and all over our environment. No, it's amazing that people really fall for it. It's like the CDC thing about the 1%. It was so weird to me. I woke up to that headline, and they're just all stroking themselves over this. Oh, people who take the vaccine and get COVID, only 1% of them die. I'm just like, oh my God, only 1% of people are dying if they get COVID, and that's before we even have a longer conversation about what is COVID? Have they isolated it? What is a virus? How do you actually get one? What effect does it have on any given individual? Thank you so much for the call, Tom. Appreciate you hanging out. And make sure to grab a copy of that Economics in One Lesson if you want one. Just leave your info with Sam there. We'll go on. We're getting some more calls. 512-248-8252 is the number if you want to jump in. And I'm going to talk about, at some point here in this hour, I will get onto the Alec Baldwin thing. Maybe we'll fall into it naturally. Maybe somebody else wants to talk about it. We have a couple of callers from the home state, the home base. Pat is in Texas. Pat, what's happening?
Well, you kind of pulled my chain there when everything you've been saying practically. Everybody wants to talk about 9/11. And there's a pastor on YouTube named Paul Begley, Paulbegley, and he had something that 11 hours ago when I read it, but I guess it's been a day, and he was talking about the significance of all these people getting bit by serpents in Israel. Well, anyway, I haven't really got all that, but he's talked about Revelation 9:11, and I said, well, I got to look at that.
Okay.
So I started looking at it, and I decided it's really telling what's going on now. But there's all these interpretations, and it talked about I don't know if people know the Bible. They know about this things like serpents that stung people for 5 months or something. Everybody says, okay, that's a helicopter. Okay, all right. That sounds good. And then it said, and they had a king over them, which was the king of angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the bottomless pit, right? Abaddon, Apion, the destroyer.
Greek, it's Apollyon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one woe was passed. I guess that's, getting stung by the helicopters. And behold, there comes two more woes after that. The sixth angel, he made a sound and heard a voice of the four horns of the golden altar before God, and saying to the sixth angel, which had the trump, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. So I'm going to tell you what that is. This is what I've heard all my life. I'm, I can't say it's true, but they say that the Chinese have built a dam, and they have dammed up the Euphrates, or they could. I haven't studied this in years. Okay, and so they bound up the great river Euphrates, and the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour a day. Okay, I don't know what that means. To slay a third part of the men. And the number of the army of the horsemen were, it says 200,000. Well, we know that's 200 million. And everybody's always thought that that was China because they have that kind of an army. And so, and I saw the horses in the vision, and they sat on them having breastplates of fire and brimstone. Okay, brimstone is what's coming out of the volcanoes, and they're going off all over the world. It's really sulfur dioxide.
So what you're ultimately getting at is that you believe we're in the end times.
I don't know. It says if they did not repent. See, that's
if they did not repent. Well, oh no, we're in trouble then.
But when I got through reading all this, I thought, China's all over the place.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There's so many interpretations, and there's so many ways that you can look at these things, but then again, there are only just a limited number of thoughts contained within what it's trying to put forth. The argument that it's trying to make. So of course you're going to narrow your vision to a certain number of things. We're told that we can't know, that there's no way to know, and that there's no escaping the tribute. It is, and there's no escaping the trials. There's no escaping that tribulation. But it's really not.
No. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty biblical. I mean, the things that you're reading. Listen. Can we just turn her down for a minute, because only one of us can talk at a time here and be heard and be understood. I let you say. Well, you can hang up. You're welcome to leave. Okay. I'm not letting you finish. I let you speak. I let you say your piece. And the things that you're talking about are not biblical. You've taken the things that are biblical, and you've confused them with things that are happening today for whatever reason. And excuse me, I'm still talking. This respect, it's a two-way street, and it begins over here on this one. Okay? I'm the one that's talking right now. Listen, you're the one that's trying to push off an idea and place this biblical prophecy in here. You're the one and framing it in this time and just picking and choosing names and places that don't have anything that necessarily do with each other. And just assuming, and you're stumbling through it, and you're going, oh, I don't even know what that means, and skipping over the parts that you don't think are important. And I happen to think that that's important, and that it's not fair, and that if you're going to talk about the Bible and you want to accept what people believe about it, what I just said, people believe and understand about the Bible. Now you have one chance to finish your point and not tell me how I'm supposed to see things. That's the chance you get.
Was the four angels that were prepared for an hour, a day, a month, and a year to slay a third part of men. I don't know what a day, an hour, a month, and a year means.
Okay, and that's problematic if you're going to sit here and try to tell us that you know what this passage means and that what this revelation portends. It's extremely problematic. Don't preach to me that I'm not. You don't get to do that. You don't get to play that game where you get to tell me my interpretation or my understanding of something when you can't even express your own properly. We're not playing that game. So please, I'm interested in hearing it, but let's hear it in one complete thought. Let's have the thought organized, and let's not just sit here and try to pontificate. Well, I don't know, maybe. You're using way too many words in there that are subjective and open.
You're right. I won't tell you any of that stuff. I'm sorry.
Okay. Bye. I just don't get that. I don't get that. I'm open to listening to these things, but if you can't express it, if you can't talk about it, and you want to just pick and choose, it's stupid. Yeah, it's fun, it's goofy, but it's dumb. I don't want that. I'm not okay. I have the luxury of being able to stumble through a thought and come back to it because I have 2 hours. Well, this isn't her show. I don't have 2 hours to try and listen to her figure out and reason out what it is she's trying to tell us and why she's trying to demonize the Chinese and why she's trying to suggest that the trumpets they're talking about in the passage Revelation 9:11 and the related passages in talking about the woes, the 12 woes. She's suggesting that trumpet is Trump. They give us the same thing when they're reading Nostradamus. Oh, he missed it by a letter. Oh, he really meant this. I don't need that. I don't want that. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is what any of that book, what any of that passage means for an individual. You said it once. She almost made it there. Repentance. Be square with your God if you believe in your God, and treat other people in a godly manner. That's the message that I need to hear from that crowd, her people. If she doesn't like it, that's fine. Get your own show. Do your own thing somewhere else. I'm not telling you you can't. I'm just telling you can't do it here. I'm not going to let you get away with it. That's all there is to it. We got another call. Let's see, 512. Where'd my number go? I don't have the sticky. 512-248-8252. If you want to jump into the conversation, make sure let producer Sam there know to grab a copy of Economics in One Lesson if you get on the show if you want one. If he's still holding, we'll take Andy, who's also in the home state there, Texas. What's happening, brother?
Oh, hey, well, I appreciate you taking my phone call, sir. But we can throw out the political way back to freedom. We can throw out the judicial way back to freedom until we get this settled. Because, I mean, just look what Congress is doing. Absolutely nothing. We get a little argument with Fauci and that guy from Kentucky, Rand Paul. And then we get a little argument with that Hawley guy and whatnot. But what have they done? They're not doing any kind of veto proof. Nobody in Congress has the will to set us free. And that's because they're ruled by people who are all paid off. Having said that, though, without those two passages to get back to freedom, if you had the ear of the United States and you were calling the shots, what would you do? What would be some of the first things you would do to bring us back to freedom?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a pipe dream to say any of it. But I mean, of course I would end the Fed. I shared a meme about that today, October 24th, towardanarchy.com. There's a little how to eat candy corn, and it's a take on just the humor. A lot of people don't like candy corn candy, and it's that time of year. And there's this thing, I do it. I know when I eat one color at a time. And so they're suggesting that step one, you open the bag. Step two, you pour the candy into the trash can. And then step three, you end the Fed. So, yeah, top of my list would be end the Fed. IRS would be gone. Currency. A lot of these things, I think you would probably have to turn them off slowly. I don't know if you can turn them off overnight just because they've ingrained themselves so much into everybody, and you have to educate people a little bit on what to do. But I mean, there'd be a whole bunch of it'd be a long list, and I would start at day one. But I mean, the system's not going to let me do that. Even if I could get the votes to be elected, it wouldn't happen. I don't think it can be done because the system is its own beast, and it doesn't survive if you turn off its lifeblood. And boy, starting with the IRS and the Fed would be it would certainly send it into cardiac arrest, I think.
Well, hey, okay, so let's go just a hair bit deeper. Let's say you didn't get elected, but because of your radio show and who you are, you got the popular, let's say you're the Rush Limbaugh of today or whatever. And all of a sudden, let's just say that everything is broken down. There's no political path to this. Election has nothing to do with it. The Fed is off the paper right now because the paper's already been printed. These people have it, and they're using it against us. So day one, knowing what you know, but you have the ear of everybody in America. What would be the first thing you would do as a leader of the free society, or at least the wannabe free society? Let's go off the political spectrum. I get you go do, however you want to. Yeah, the Fed is number one. We got to get an honest monetary system. We got to fix our elections, but we don't have any of that. And it's today, but you got the ear of everybody. You're the leader of the free world. What would be that first decision?
And that's tough because that construct is so ingrained, and it infects so much of what we see and how we understand the world, in particular these other people that don't even understand those blocks, those things that are in front of them. I like words like community. I think one of the big things that we can talk about. I don't know. There's not any one answer because I think everybody has their own problems. So I think it depends on who you're talking to, and why they've come to you to ask this question. Why did they, why am I the guy that they are listening to? Where, what's the point of that? What is it with what failed before it had to get to me? I'm there's a whole lot of things that I just can't answer within that, but I like community. I like family. I like independence and self-reliance. These are words. These were the things that I would say that our government should have been entrusted with to create that community, to encourage. Not they don't even have to participate in it. They just have to use their influence, their ability, that ear that they have to tell everybody these are the things that we need to make strong. The individuals, the empower individuals to care for themselves and care for the people around them in the community. We got to go into a break. We'll come back and we'll finish that thought. And if you go to towardanarchy.com, you can follow along as well as listen. And if you look along the right-hand side there of any page, right at the top of that, underneath the articles button, there's a way to listen to previous episodes of the show, replays of every episode. Well, actually, I guess not every episode is on there technically. It technically is only this year. The previous 2 years of episodes are in the episodes in the archive there. Easy to find, but there's also a subscribe button down on that right-hand side, and that's what I want that to be my concentration for a while. Try to build up an email list, a direct contact with people, not this indirect so-called social media contact that we occasionally get, that if an algorithm isn't burying my particular post and topic or just me, and Facebook recently made some changes and they turned my Toward Anarchy page. I have many pages. They turned just specifically my Toward Anarchy page into its own identity now, into its own persona, just like myself. And I can't do things with it that I could normally do. I can't just be scrolling through my page or through my wall and find somebody else's posts or comments or whatever it is and click on it and share it onto my page. I can't do that anymore. I can do that on all my other pages, but for some reason, my Toward Anarchy page, I can't do that. And it's that just those little things like that. It's like, well, why? Why is that happening to me? Why are they doing that to me? Am I the only person that's experiencing that? What's the point of that? Why do all the other pages behave exactly the same as they've always before? A conspiracy. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know, Andy. What do you think?
Hey, you know what? Okay, so I threw a question to you off the cuff, then simplified it down to even more power thing for you and whatnot. And so what I got out of that was a very good answer, to be honest with you, because what can we do? Nobody really has their freedom back right now. But you insinuate about community. You like that name. Well, that insinuates communication as well. So that means people in the community, they start communicating, and then you got your own little thing going on. So, yeah, that's a good thing. You called it right. And once we get in those communities, then we defend our rights of those communities the way the government should be defending our rights right now, but failed to do so. But in our own communities, we can do that. And then somehow, some way, maybe communities come together, and then we all just say, you know what, these people are just talking heads. Get them out of our face. And we live our life. Because that's really what we want to do anyway. Right, Mike?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that's fantastic. I'm glad that you got that out of that, because that's what I meant. Even if it's hard to express in terms of what it means to an individual, and that was my caveat, my caveat, depending on how you want to pronounce that. That it depends on the individual and their situation and what they believe is important, and there are going to be communities of people that I or you or someone else will look at and think, my God, what are those people doing? But you know what? As long as they're doing it to each other and they're doing it voluntarily and they're not doing it to me, I don't want to even have to worry about that. I just want to concentrate on the things that are good, that I do find reasonable, the people that I love, the people that are around me, my community that I'm a part of, and just it's the same that I call for on the social media in real life. Let us have that choice, and let those voices that you say are dangerous, and they may well be loud. Let them be vociferous and noticeable, so that I can just avoid them. Thanks so much for the call, Andy. Listen, we got to go into a break here. We'll come right back. We've got another half hour, and I'm going to get into this Alec Baldwin thing, because I think there's an important lesson there. Well, a bunch of them, but we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
TowardAnarchy.com. October 24th is what you're looking for. A number of things that I shared with you this week. The links are there. Grab them, share them around. One of the things that it might have been Andy that had brought up, just hinted at it right at the beginning of his conversation as he was getting to his question for me, was about Fauci and Rand Paul, and that the government's not doing anything about it, that they've sort of exposed this network of evil. I don't know. It's the same network of evil. It's just in different players along the way, except in the case of Fauci, he's not a different player. He's been at the center of killing a lot of people for several decades at least. And Rand Paul was right about Anthony Fauci. He is a liar, and if he'll lie and obfuscate and beat around the bush about the so-called little things, what will he do with the big things? It's always a question of a liar, and especially an obvious liar. We all have our little white lies and our little things that we have to do for our own sanity when we're sort of getting through our daily grind and dealing with people. But this is a man who people trust, not so much as they used to, maybe. That's hopefully a good thing. That I think probably should be charged with the murders of a lot of people. It's hard to say, because he's not the one doing these things. He's not the one putting people on ventilators, even if he's telling people that they should be put on ventilators. He's not the one doing it. It's these doctors. And it's the same problem with Alec Baldwin. I'll get to that in a minute. He's not the one doing it, but I think that I think it's obvious that when it comes to somebody like him, that he's a large figurehead and that his words carry a lot of weight, and he should. This is, the question of government and its influence over people and why it should suffer consequences, why the individuals within it should have been suffering consequences all along for the things they do. But no, it takes, amoral behavior, amoral sexual behavior to get anybody to pay attention and suggest that there's something wrong with the office of the president. But all these other things that are done go almost unnoticed, uncommented on, as far as the majority of people are concerned and what they see. That link there about Rand Paul, just some commentary on it. And it's a follow-up about the involvement with the gain of function in Wuhan and the fact that whatever COVID is, there was obviously an American-funded, your tax dollars funded plan in work, and it wasn't all just puppies. But apparently they abused the puppies too. That came out just recently. I haven't even followed on that one yet. I just don't even want to know, because I get it. I mean, if they'll do it to humans. You think they care about a cute little puppy? I don't think they do. I shared some geek stuff. There's a ton of geek stuff going on in my own life, and it's not something that I ever get to talk about with any reasonable people. I'm always talking to it with geeks, so I bring it here to share with you. And maybe if you're a fan of one of a few things that could be involved in the geekdom, maybe you'll find it interesting too. The links are there for you at towardanarchy.com. October 24th. There's two of them. One is about the former DC Comics creator. He's now an independent creator. His name is Ethan Van Sciver, and he supports a thing called ComicsGate. And if you listen to the show, you've heard me talk about it. I haven't talked about ComicsGate. I don't know if I've ever said that term before. Maybe just in passing. But it is it's this controversy of the same question that's happening throughout the rest of society and the rest of the world. And you may think, oh, he's talking about comic books and ComicsGate. And it's got to be like Inflategate or something like that. Football thing, in case you don't know. It's absolutely apt, is what I'm getting at. And you may not understand it, so I want you to stick with me. And that can be hard to do. I get, look, like somebody like Pat. Pat is a wonderful person. She's a wonderful listener and supporter of the network. Maybe she's not so good at trying to get her point across in the limited time and space. Maybe she's just like a lot of people, and she wants to say her thing. And I let her do that. You see what happened there, right? I let her do that, and I wasn't judgmental of what she was saying until after I tried to make a point, and she immediately became judgmental of it and told me I was wrong. I let her make her point. I let her say her piece, and the second I started to say mine, she had to start telling me I was wrong instead of letting me finish my piece. And again, if you're a fan of the show, you understand I'm not a fan of that behavior at all. We're having a conversation here. And luckily, it's my conversation. So if I don't want to have the conversation anymore, I made a joke when I was talking about the show and spreading it around the social media today, saying it would be open phones. I'll take your comments and your questions, and we can talk about anarchy or pop culture or history or current events or whatever it is. You ask it, I'll answer it, or I'll fake a bad connection. It's my play. It's my call up in here, and I don't ask for a whole lot from the callers. You've seen it over the years. I just want an honest conversation, and I don't want you to tell me I'm wrong. Show me I'm wrong. Let me finish my thought first, and then show me where you think I'm wrong. But don't tell me I'm wrong. Don't tell me that your way is better than mine. That's not what we're here to find out. We can't prove or disprove that, because all we're doing is having a conversation. And if everybody isn't heard, then it's not a conversation, it's a lecture. So I let you talk, and then you don't let me talk, we're not going to talk anymore. That's the end of the conversation. I even kind of give another chance and still kind of get kicked in the jimmy. This thing about ComicsGate is it's the same conversation that's happening across America and the world. That's happening in our schools with our teenagers. It has been happening for some time, but the sort of last 10 years has been certainly the largest influx of these ideas, and that's this gender fluidity and they and them, and the altering of our history, of our culture, to placate, to pander to a small, vocal, but perfectly within the right to be whoever the hell they want to be, group of people who, in the case of comic books and ComicsGate, they're not supporters of the industry. They're not the people who are buying the books. We might get them to pick up a gimmick. I've talked about this before in relation to this geek stuff, and the fact that I'm a comic book shop owner, that I've been in collectibles in that business for a long, long time, and I've watched all the fads come and go. And I get when there's an honest work, an honest creation, and an honest attempt to produce something within that industry that is different, that stands out, that's never been done before, that is impactful and makes a difference, that is diverse. But we're told that diversity is the color of your skin, your sexual proclivity, your penchant for gender terms, whether you want to be called they or them, he, it, she, purple penguin, whatever the hell it is. Fine, do it. But don't pretend that I have to, too. And so it's going on in ComicsGate. I think it was last week that I shared a link as well that was, because it was, the sacrifice of the foundations of our language and that not the so-called non-binary language. Well, what's happened is that's on the 17th of October, if you want to go back and look at that article. And it's just someone's opinion piece on it, and I think it's a relevant opinion. And that's the case here, October 24th, towardanarchy.com. First link in my list of shared links there about this Ethan Van Sciver and ComicsGate, and within the industry, he claims that it's being destroyed within. And as a comic book shop owner, a lover of the art as well as the industry, I find it really hard to disagree. I've talked about it before, and it's happening right now. It just happened. I've been collecting the title. So it was a surprise to me, because I'm never the guy that hits that title. I every once in a while I get lucky and I score a book and it gets put into my collection, and I'm able to 5 years later sell it for a few $100 or something like that. That's a rare thing to be able to do, and to be able to do it in in this case, to find that I had stumbled onto the controversial book of the day was like, oh, that's kind of neat, because it came out last week before that the new Superman, the son of Kal-El. Kal-El is the Superman that everyone knows, truth, justice, the American way, truth, justice, and not the American way anymore. They changed that too, if you didn't know. I'll have to tell you about that maybe next week. He's one of these attempts at sort of non-binary, bisexual, wants to have it every way, love has to be shared with everyone and in every place. I was going to use another word that wouldn't have been nearly as pleasant. It's the idea that they've taken Superman, who there was otherwise really nothing particularly wrong with. He's a Boy Scout. He's sort of a statist, truth, justice, the American way. Well, the American way is a pretty crappy way if you look at what America has become in the last 200 years. So maybe it was a good thing to change it, but they didn't change it because of that. They want to change it because about this idea of inclusiveness, and as if these people don't have a representation. And I apologize for using the phrase "these people," but I'm talking about multiple people. I'm not talking about one person, a them or a they. They have representation within the industry. They always have. There have always been characters of color. There have always been gay characters. There have always been sexually ambiguous, ambivalent as well, characters within the industry. And so it becomes this destructive leftist, we all know it is, let's be honest, push for radical inclusiveness of people who have only one agenda, which I would normally support. I support your own individual agenda until you force it on me. Then we have a problem. Then it's no longer your individual agenda. Then it's the agenda of society or your group or whoever, whatever you feel comfortable calling yourself. Why can't I just call you Bob? Kate? Whatever. Make up your own name. That's fine. I do. Why not? I didn't do it because I'm rebelling against my sexuality. I didn't do it because I'm trying to figure out who I am. I did it for practical purposes. My real name is not easy to present on the air, and frankly, it protects me from a certain layer of insanity of people who would but otherwise don't have the means or wouldn't make the effort to go the extra mile to try to find out who I really am in an attempt to hurt me or hurt someone that I love. It's something that I learned early on in the radio business when a Denver personality was gunned down right after his radio show one day. And I was a kid when this happened, but he was a huge personality in a huge market. Extremely famous. Excuse me, let me get a drink. Alan Berg, right? Is that the guy's name? He's a famous talk show radio host. It's been many years ago. But he was gunned down for his opinion, for his voice on the radio. And so that just always stuck with me. And just the idea of getting to choose your own name and be called, whatever you want. I didn't pick out my name for any other reason than it was a comic book name. It was Johnny Storm, and I don't even particularly like that character. I'm not a Fantastic Four fan, never have been. I'm not a team guy. I'm a solo guy. I'm a Wolverine. I'm a Batman. It's some of the X-Men team stuff, but realistically, the only reason I skipped it, I missed the boat. I could have had probably all of these major Copper Age titles in my collection, even to this day, if I was into them, but I wasn't. and and Bronze Age into the 90s. That's when Rob Liefeld entered the comic book industry, and Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, and these guys were big. And Liefeld, in particular, he created X-Force, and I was just getting back into comic books at the time that happened. I was in college, or in the transition to college in that period when that all became popular. And I had my own money and my own job, and so I was doing things like buying comic books, of course. And I found myself into team books, but otherwise I'm still just a Batman or a Wolverine. We'll come back and I'll tell you what's happening on the show next week. Oh, I'm so glad that right away it was that one of those liners where she just jumps right in and says that, because I want to take this time, and we don't have a lot of time left before the end of the show, and I want to talk about the Alec Baldwin thing, and I'm glad that it just sort of naturally ended up coming at the end. I almost forgot about it, but I already said that if we're talking about Alec Baldwin, if that's what you're typing and that's the words that's coming out of your mouth, you're already off on the wrong conversation. So let's just take this short period to address it, because I think it relates to truth seekers and people who are trying to talk to other people and expose this whatever it is, whatever your angle is of New World Order, health lies, whatever it is, Hollywood lies, that people need empathy and understanding. I pity Alec Baldwin. He is a fool, and he is ignorant, and he does what a lot of people do. He believes what other people tell him, because at the heart of it, he is just still a man. He may be someone you find flawed. You may not like his acting. You may not like his portrayal of your favorite orange-haired popsicle stick. I don't care about any of that, and neither should you, and that's the point. The speculation that has gone on about why this happened. I'm not a big Occam's razor fan when it comes to talking about government, when it comes to talking about politics, economics, history. But what I am, when I am an Occam's razor fan, when it comes to life, just general day-to-day life and the things that happen to us, and just some points about the Alec Baldwin thing. Some misconceptions. People think, why is a gun on the set that fires real bullets? Why is it a prop? Because a prop doesn't mean fake. There's nothing in the definition of prop that means fake. So, all right, get rid of that. Why was he shooting at the crew and not another actor? Have you seen the Western? Have you seen Young Guns? Billy the Kid turns to the camera, unloads his guns on the camera. Do you understand the possibility, the Occam's razor of what's happening here and what could happen? It stands to reason that those people would be there. But here's the problem. Okay, Alec Baldwin and progressive Hollywood have been demonizing guns for decades. They've been blaming them for murders and accidents. And in a flash, he proves that the real problem with guns is Hollywood. The real problem is the representation of gun owners as being a bunch of crazy rednecks running around shooting up the streets, and like is often represented in these Westerns. And Alec Baldwin is a pitiful, ignorant hypocrite. But I feel sorry for the man, because no one should have to live with the death of somebody, even an accidental, ignorant death. He should have known. If he didn't hate guns, he would have known that it doesn't matter who hands you a gun. The 24-year-old prop master who, the gun master, not even the prop master, the weapons master, the arms master on the set, who she didn't want to take a job because she didn't know she was quite ready for it yet. Jesus, it's your set, Alec. It was your show. You should have known, if you handle a gun, you make sure that the gun doesn't have real bullets in it. You make sure that you don't point it at anything you intend to kill. You don't handle it ignorantly. That's my thoughts on the Alec Baldwin thing. We'll be back next week. Until then, you take care.